What's up, everybody? Welcome to another special edition. We got FanDuel Friday, the third edition of NFL. We already finished recording the MLB show, so make sure you check the MLB feeds for that one. We're talking the best ways to take down a tournament for the MLB contest tonight. And we didn't love the slate, just kind of had a little baseball fatigue when we were beginning it, and by the end we found some great plays that we love to make some money. So we're ready to do the same for football, and I'm joined with my friend Andre Alford, Drizzy 26. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good over here. Yeah, definitely fatigued when it comes to MLB, but still in these betting streets. So even though I want to get out of them, but yeah, I'm ready for just to break down. Brainstorm on this FanDuel NFL slate, put a couple in for the millie, see what happens, and go from there.
Yes, let's do it. So if you're watching this on the YouTube, make sure you hit the like button, and let's get into this slate. We got a fun one after a disappointing showdown slate for both of us. It kind of went right a combo of what the two of us were saying was going to happen. We took some stands, and it was sort of the middle. The stand to take was Amari Cooper, and we missed that one. But we got some fun, interesting plays today. Let's start at the quarterback position, and we'll talk about stacks in general. So when we get into this, before we talk about the specific players, talk to me about how you like to strategize for this week. Me personally, for my main cash sort of lineup, if a stack works out sort of well, like if I get a secondary receiver in there who just fits, I'll play the stack, and that'll be kind of my way of getting a little different in tournaments as a two-man stack. But in my main tournament lineups, I usually have at least two, usually three pass catchers with my QB. How do you like to usually run things on FanDuel?
Typically, depending on the slate, I like to do like two and a run back. But some of these guys on some of these games, you can't have run backs on them, and just from the price point, and try to fit them all in there unless you find some extremely cheap value that you are in love with today, and that can give you a high score, or give you a decent score where you need to take that at tournament. But I do I like to try to just maybe if I can't get one side of a game if possible, just like a one man or two man, depending on it. I've seen different things so far at the top, and I've taken down these slates so far. So I guess it's just depending on the slate. Like this slate, I think you can get away with a skinny stack, but with some guys, and I think you might need a double stack with other guys. So I think I'm just gonna preference it around that, unless the guy's cheap, and they go from there.
I'm with you 100% because we have the highest projected quarterback today on the slates, according to the blitz, which we got up right now, is Jalen Hurts. And if you're playing Jalen Hurts, I don't think you need to stack. Like, not only do I not think you need to stack two or three pass catchers, I think you can just run Jalen Hurts naked, and that is a-okay because going into last night, he was leading the league in rushing touchdowns. I think Nick Chubb, who was tied with him, surpassed them last night, but he was the number one guy before that. And we also, according to the RG projections, we have Josh Allen as the number one QB, second on the blitz, number one in our RG projections. And that was the person I was leaning to on first look. And Allen's kind of fun because you can stack. You don't really have to stack. But I think if you're playing a single entry or a cash game lineup, it's a pretty interesting and comfortable start to plug in Josh Allen, to plug in Stephon Diggs, and to see where it goes from there. What's your lean on the Allen versus Jalen Hurts situation?
Probably just because of the way I've been trying to build earlier. I was trying to really get like a Josh Allen stack that was solid. It's kind of hard doing this. Like just and that's just like it's a Josh Allen skinny stack because I also try to run it back a little bit because that game is it's going to have some scoring in it. So when you try to get all those guys in as far as Josh Allen, pairing him with Stephon Diggs, and then try to pair yourself with like a guy like Waddle or Tyreek Hill. It just is the cost wise of what you're left with is not ideal. And you have to fill it with like low end guys that hopefully on the outside of scoring a touchdown, which might end up happening on this slate. But um, I really do just I think prefer Hurts in a vacuum because I can pair Hurts with Goddard or pair Hurts with AJ Brown and I think I'll be fine. Or even if you want to add Miles Sanders into the play this week, who I think is definitely in play for sure, you go that route as well. And he's $900 cheaper than Josh Allen.
I think AJ Brown is a very good play for tournaments, but I do think I'm going to have a tough time getting to him this week just because of the other receivers in the same price tier that I like a little bit better. And my personal lean is Josh Allen. I love the idea of stacking him up with both Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, who's been practicing this week and said he's feels 100% like he's going to go. And then we also have to monitor the other thing that's interesting with this Josh Allen situation is we have to monitor Dawson Knox, who has been in and out of practice this week. And if he plays, I think he's interesting for tournaments. If he doesn't, or even if he's still limited for really large field stuff, if you want to go a deep stack, I think Reggie Gilliam is interesting, who he scored a touchdown last week and had a couple targets when Tommy Sweeney was a healthy scratch, and he's currently in the tight end pool, even though he's a fullback, and they kind of play him all over the field, and he's a really good athlete. So if we get Dawson Knox out or limited, I think that makes for a very interesting tournament stack. But Josh Allen for me is going to be my number one option, and Jalen Hurts is going to come in at number two. For tournaments, who else are these other guys in your pool that you're interested in getting to?
Uh, it's tough because I definitely gonna be Patrick Mahomes for sure. Right behind him, I think he's gonna probably go a little bit overlooked just because of these other two guys here and how they've been performing. And Patrick Mahomes also will throw to different guys as we've seen in these first 2 weeks. But I do like this game for Kelsey, and I like this game for Juju Smith Schuster a lot. So those are my two main guys. I think I would go to pair with Patrick Mahomes. But I also do like getting to a guy like Kyler Murray going against the Rams. We saw that he came to life a little bit uh, against life a little bit against the Raiders, and ended up leading them to a comeback win. It was using his feet, so I don't mind him a little bit and taking my shots on that team against the Raiders. I mean against the Rams, sorry. And I also my last guy that I'm really high on a lot this week is Marcus Mariota, 7-3 against Seattle. Uh, as you see, he's a mobile quarterback, which is something we definitely like. He definitely can throw touchdowns, as we can see. He can move the ball down the field. He's done it twice so far. Almost up to a comeback win against the Rams, and almost beat our Saints. We're both Saints fans here, so um, it's just an interesting situation. And I can see him putting up a score of 20 to 25, and him being an optimal quarterback at that price and paying off big for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. Before I talk about my favorite quarterback plays, just in reference to a type of stack you may do with Marcus Mariota, Drake London has been priced up a little bit, but not very much. He's up to $6,200, still very affordable. Kyle Pitts, his price is going down, and now we're uh, not only has his price gone down a little bit, but we're projecting him for sub 10% ownership. Um, what do you think about the stack options with Mariota? Would you be running him naked, hoping he runs in a touchdown, or would you be putting out Drake London and Kyle Pitts with him?
I am going to be putting out both of them with him. I'm not going to do no. I don't like. Honestly, I like doing. I don't mind doing naked quarterback sometimes, but a lot of times I find that that's not. It's hard to be profitable with that in a way. From at least for me, from the standpoint of me trying to do it. I think if you do a naked QB, you have to run correlations with your other positions more heavily. So I probably will just make sure I run it back with Kyle Pitts. Like you said, sub 10% on. People trying to get off him, but I would still ride him and just hope that this game goes over. Um, and Mariota just finds a way to target him a lot. Drake London's look promising so far. I love the way he's ran his routes and has gotten open. So yeah, I love the stack as a whole. I think I'm just going to run it that way, either skinny or with both of them.
Yep, I'm with you there. And Kyle Pitts, I feel like yes, he's disappointed people, and then people saw coach speak of why is he blocking so much, and the coach was like, "We're gonna use what we need him to do to win." And they had two difficult matchups. They were down on running backs, and now they get an easier matchup against the Seahawks team. And the coach came right back and said, like, yeah, he's going to block a lot at the start of the year, but we're also going to need him to score some touchdowns in different games. So it's coming. We just don't know when it's coming. He's a crazy athlete. I like this spot against Seattle. But having said that, it's a really, really tough tight end position this week because there are so many good options, and we're going to get to that more later. But sticking with the quarterback, some of my favorite options up top, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, I'm good with that. I like going Mecole Hardman and Marquez Valdez-Scantling over Juju Smith-Schuster simply because I don't actually think Juju's that good. Like, I don't think he is. And I think Hardman and Valdez-Scantling both have more 50-yard touchdown upside, and that's why I'd rather pair those guys with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson, I'm good with him as well. I didn't have a Lamar Jackson team last week, and it cost me, but thankfully I had a Tua team, so I was able to make some money last week. Kyler Murray, I really like against the Rams, as well as Matt Stafford in the same game. I'm interested in stacking both of those guys. Murray has some really, really good cheap options that you can stack with. He can run a touchdown in, but at the same time, Zach Ertz is one of my favorite tight ends this week. You can roll out Ertz with him. And Marquise Brown, 7K, hasn't had a lot of production, but he's getting a lot of targets. And Greg Dortch still isn't seeing a price increase, even though we've seen Murray target him 9 times in the first game, only 4 in the second one, but he had a touchdown and he caught all 4 of his targets. So Dortch is somebody who's interesting while they're so heavily down-manned at receiver with Kyler Murray. And Matt Stafford, I just love the stack options you can do with him as well. Cooper Kupp is always the top receiver on any slate. And this weekend, he gets a absolutely phenomenal matchup. Tyler Higbee's been getting a ton of targets. Allen Robinson still only 6K and got more targets last game. So Stafford, somebody I like. I always like quarterbacks that there are lots of people I can stack them up with. And so Joe Burrow is somebody that I'm interested in. But to be honest with you, I don't think I really want to play T. Higgins 7-3. I'm okay with it. I have no problems. He got 10 targets in the second game back. So to be honest, yeah, I'm okay with you doing a T. Higgins and Jamar Chase stack. But I think I'm probably more likely just to go with Jamar Chase as opposed to using Joe Burrow in my lineup. I like the Marcus Mariota call. And if I'm running Millie Maker type lineups, I think you can even take shots on guys like Jared Goff, Geno Smith, and Matt Ryan, just because they're decent, cheap stack options. And Jared Goff is actually somebody that I think is somewhat interesting just because 7-1 playing, he's in a good, decent matchup against Minnesota. He had like 26 points last week. He's looked pretty good. 6 touchdowns to 1 interception in 2 games this year. And it's a very easy stack with Amon-Ra St. Brown and TJ Hawkinson. So Goff, I think if you're MMEing or you're playing lots of lineups, I think that's somebody you can include in the pool as well. But that's mostly it for me. Allen and Hurts are the top 2, but they're going to be the top 2 for everyone. And so I really like the upside of the pivots of guys like Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford, Lamar Jackson, and Marcus Mariota.
I agree. I'm not going to forget about one guy here that I think we all skipped over, and that's on the opposite side of that Detroit game, and that's Kirk Cousins. That was my dark horse MVP guy to win. A big game is incoming for this offense. They are too good of an offense, too much talent on their side to play how they played last week, and I think they're going to make it up this week with a big vengeance. And I can see Kirk Cousins easily being the highest scoring quarterback on this slate too, just from passing alone, and him being needed with a Dalvin Cook and a Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen. Even you got Irv Smith too as well. So you have options with him to pair as well. So he's another great option I think that we have to look at today and consider.
I am of the opinion and belief that Kirk Cousins is just bad. Like, I think he's a trash quarterback. I think he's always been overrated ever since he was in Washington, and I think he still is to this day. Um, Having said that, it is a pretty good matchup, and there are some stack options. But me personally, he's coming in as the third highest owned QB on the slate. That's just going to be a big old no for me, and I'm just going to maybe play one of Justin
He's
Jefferson
not,
or Irv Smith
but
instead.
do we really think he's gonna be the third highest on? I don't. I mean, his price is he's priced at an appropriate price where he's friendly to be the third, but I don't know if he's gonna be the third. He's also the second highest over under the game. They have the highest. They're projected to be the highest team total on the slate. I think you have to go that route because everyone's going to be on the other guy. When we get to running back, and Dalvin Cook, which I don't mind either, but I think it's a way just to get different and get off of that running game.
If it is getting different and he's not coming in at 10 to 15% ownership come Sunday, then I might have some interest, but I would just rather play some of their weapons and get one of these quarterbacks who could also score 3 touchdowns, but maybe run in 1 or 2 as well.
Understood. All right, we're gonna move on. Do you want to move on to running back?
Let's move on to running back. And so, I kind of like getting running back after we get receiver and tight end. And the reason for that is because just fresh talking QBs, the receivers and tight ends are straight in our mind already. And we can kind of rip through them pretty quickly. Cooper Kupp is obviously the top guy on the board. Justin Jefferson is obviously the 1B to Cooper Kupp's 1A this year. Having said that, Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson on FanDuel are $98 and $9,500 this week, where you can get Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams for $1,000+ cheaper. And these are guys who are getting similar in similar situations who just haven't quite been getting quite as much production this year. Where are your priorities at quarterback? Are you team jam him in on Kupp and or Jefferson, or are you looking to save salary with some of these mid-tier options?
I think I'm going to have to play each one of those just with their quarterback only. I'm not going to play them individually. It's kind of hard to get their price point wise just by themselves. I think I definitely want to stack them up together for sure. Unless I'm running it back with only person maybe it's Cooper Kupp because I know you can run him back with Kyler Murray and that could be fine and still work out. But mainly I want to get a lot more of these other guys like Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I really want to get a lot of Devontae Adams, honestly, just from what we saw that Stephon Diggs did to Tennessee last week. That was embarrassing. So imagine what Devontae Adams, who I think is the best receiver in the game and the best route runner in the game, could do against this team. So I'm really high on Devontae Adams here in this spot, and probably would try, like I said, get a lower. I mean, more to field of those three guys, next three guys to the first two.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. For me, I think Kupp is going to be my priority of between him and Jefferson. But I want to get at minimum one of Kupp, Jefferson, and Stephon Diggs in most of my lineups this week, I think, because those are really my favorite options to score the most points, even more than the running backs. Austin Eckler's in a great spot. Joe Mixon's in a great spot. We'll get there. But I think my favorite people who to really go off this week are the receivers. And so Diggs, Kupp, and Jefferson are going to be my 3 priorities. Diggs will be the first receiver I plug in like a cash game single entry type scenario. But we have a lot of really good options in this 7 to 8K range. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously up top at 7.8K. He's breaking records with his consistently right now. He has the longest streak in NFL history of 8+ catches and a TD. And you got T. Higgins, who came back and had 10 receptions in his second game back from injury. Gabe Davis is supposed to be coming back. Michael Thomas has looked like vintage Michael Thomas. Jalen Waddle's been going off. And you got Mike Williams, who's likely still going to be without Keenan Allen this week. And he had 10 targets, 21 points last week. He seems like he could be a priority as well. Who are you looking at in the mid tier? And then are there any of these cheapies that are catching your eye?
I don't know if I want to say like Mike Thomas, the one. I mean, Mike Williams. Sorry, I just got to figure out what's going on with Herbert. Herbert is the big question for me. Is he going to play a lot? Is he not going to play at all? Because they're still we're trying to figure out what him with his ribs and he's day to day. I think with that, so that's gonna be big for me. Just find out what's going on. If I want to really roster him, even though they have a high total, but without Herbert, I think Jacksonville could make some noise with that game. But I do like guys like Christian Kirk on the opposite side of that game a little bit. I think he's been showing why he's worth the money so far that they've given to him in Jacksonville. We mentioned T. Higgins before. I love him a lot. I think he's a great option, especially going against the Jets. And definitely a way to get different off of your Jamar Chases because you can have a T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd stack and go with and leave Jamar Chase off it. I think he'll still be fine, and I'll be happy with that. I like A.J. Brown going against the Washington Commanders this year. I mean, in this matchup here. I know he got a little bit banged up last game, but I can see him going off a little bit here. I definitely, when it comes down to like some of these lower end guys, like I said, the receivers deep. So I think 4 receivers is definitely the way to go this week. DK Metcalf is someone I'm really interested in a lot in that game against Atlanta. So is Tyler Lockett. One of these two guys are going to go off. Lockett, I think, went off last time, if I'm correct. Yes, he did it. Had like 11 targets, 9 receptions for 107 yards. That's really good for him. So I don't mind taking some shots on one of these two guys. Might be DK's turn to do it next. We mentioned Michael Thomas. You can't guard him. Obviously, can't guard Mike. He's a great guy, great guy to target and have your lineups. The consistency right there, the touchdowns every single game. As far as and this is just without 100 yards. This is the thing. He hasn't reached 100 yards yet and is doing this. Imagine when he gets to having a 100-yard game. Because it's going to happen. And when he does do that, he's going to be probably up there with one of the highest salary fantasy scoring wide receivers. And I also do like a guy like Brandon Cooks here at 6.6K going against Chicago. I'm still going to ride the train. He's still getting 10 to 12 targets. The first 2 games is very encouraging. He just has to catch him and take him to the house, and he's always a possibility for a big game to have.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it was a great call on Christian Kirk. That was somebody I missed, but he's in a very strong position this week. DK Metcalf is interesting if you're doing that Atlanta stack to me. And then when we're talking about this cheap range, there are a few specific situations that I think we need to monitor going into Sunday. Christian Watson practiced for the Packers today, but Sammy Watkins still did not. Randall Cobb still did not. Alan Lazard was back, but in a limited capacity. So they could be without quite a few receivers. And we could be looking at just like a Lazard, Dobbs, and Watson situation. So those guys are interesting to take a look at. The what team am I looking at here? Kansas City, I think, is always interesting with these cheap guys like Valdez-Scantling and Mecole Hardman. And then another important situation I think that we have to look at is these Bucks receivers. Julio Jones currently questionable, and we have Mike Evans who is suspended. And so if Julio Jones doesn't play, Russell Gage and Brashad Perryman are going to be in really good spots. And I've seen a lot of people already kind of early touting Russell Gage because of kind of his performances last year without Calvin Ridley and stuff like that. And I think that's reasonable. And I think Russell Gage would be a good play. But I actually think the Bucs receiver I'd be most interested in for tournaments would be Brashad Perryman. He had 5 targets last week. He didn't practice much throughout the entire week because of injury, but he's somebody that's been with Brady for a while now, and we've had big games when these Bucs receivers miss a lot. And he's also somebody that Brady looks to go deep to quite a bit. So if we get no Julio Jones, I think Brashad Perryman would make for a very, very interesting low-owned tournament play, and I think that would be one of my favorites tournament cheap receivers on the slate. Taking if we don't get Michael Pittman, I think Ashton Doolin is very interesting. I do think Pittman's going to be back, but Doolin's actually been practicing with the first team, even with Pittman back. And finally, we talked a little bit earlier about Greg Dortch, and he's somebody that I think you can play as well. Let's look at the tight ends, because I think this is probably the strongest tight end slate we have had this year, because we've had some guys priced down who are now in really good matchups. We got Kelsey and Andrews both beside each other looking like they're in good spots.
Oh, hold on real quick. I want to just touch on the guy who I like a lot too, Chris Olave. He's 5.5K. Going against Carolina, this could be a blowout game. He had blowout game for him. 13 targets last game, 5 receptions for 80 yards. A big game is incoming for him too as well. So keep a lookout. And if you're going to run some Christian McCaffrey out there, Chris Olave, I think is another good option besides Michael Thomas.
I agree. And at that point, if you like Olave, you like Thomas, you might as well just like Jameis too.
I don't know. That broken back kind of concerns me, but maybe.
So at the tight end position today, we got Kelsey and Andrews up top. Let's start there. Which of these two guys do you prefer?
It's going to be Kelsey. And it's tough because I really like Mark Andrews a lot, but Kelsey, we already know he's probably going to get consistency with targets, 7 in the second game, 9 in the last game, and the yards is going to be there. All he needs to do is just catch a touchdown. The number one option overall too for Mahomes, even though you don't know where the ball's going nowadays. Now with them, I still think you have to roster him today.
Yeah, it's really just a coin flip. I think I'd give the slightest edge to Kelsey, but like Mark Andrews, 11 targets last game too. They're projected so similarly. It's interesting. I think that the Blitz has Kelsey for a lot more, but our RG projections have these guys separated by like 0.1. So that's somewhat interesting. The Blitz is giving the edge to Kelsey. Outside of that, though, if you want to look at this 5K range, if you don't want to pay up today, one of these other guys I think is probably going to have just as good of a game as those two. And the guys that I'm looking at are Pitts, it's Hawkinson, it's Goddard, it's Dawson Knox, it's Irv Smith Jr. I really like in tournaments, but in particular, my favorite option, Zach Ertz.
Yeah, Zach Ertz, I think, is a phenomenal pick. Guided today, he's going to get the targets regardless from Kyler Murray, especially until we get B Hop back. So I think Zach Ertz is a great option to go with today. Also, we talked about him before as far as finding out how he's going to play. I like TJ Hawkinson at low ownership too at 5.5K in that fast-paced up-tempo game in Minnesota. We just need him to get in the end zone a little bit. That's all we need to do. If he gets in the end zone, he can have a monster game here. Kyle Pitts, we already talked about him. I think we both like him a lot. I'm interested in a little bit and go with Tyler Higbee too with the Matt Stafford stacks a little bit. As you see, he got 9 targets in the second game, 11 in the first. I think that will continue to be a trend, especially as long as being a third. As long as being a third, he's going to be the third option behind Allen Robinson, or sometimes the second option. Second option between him and Allen Robinson, and behind Cooper Kupp. So I like that going that way a lot as well. Another guy that I do think obviously is a little bit more expensive that I think we have to look at today that I think can get I think it's going to get a little bit overlooked. It's going to be Darren Waller, 6.4K. I think he's still always in line to have a big game here, especially against Tennessee. They can try to do something down to the top, maybe Adams, and not give up a lot to him, and then just have Waller go off or Hunter Renfrow. So I like Waller as an option here today. That's 6.4 price range.
Renfro is currently questionable, and so if he's out, I'm going to have a lot more interest in Darren Waller. But to be honest with you, I think with Devontae Adams in this lineup, we're going to see Waller's price keep going down, and I'm going to wait a few more weeks before I start playing him because I don't think we're going to see him. I think we're going to see him a lot closer to these 5K guys than the Kelsey Andrews range pretty soon. Some cheaper options I think you can take some shots on as well, especially if these Green Bay receivers are out, as Robert Tonyan. It's looking like there's a possibility that OJ Howard might be the only healthy tight end for Houston. And so if that is the case, he remains a great play. And you got Devin Duvernay questionable for Baltimore. And so I don't think it's that crazy to keep taking shots on Isaiah Likely if he's somebody that if he remains, he got more, how do I want to word this? His opportunity share increased last week. In week 1, he had 4 targets, no receptions. In week 2, he had 5 targets, 4 receptions. This is a great athlete they want involved in the offense. So as soon as he gets some chemistry with Lamar Jackson, I like his potential to go off. I think this is going to be a tight end that's going to be priced up about $5,000 cheaper by the end of the year. So I'm willing to keep taking some shots on him.
I agree with you on the likely call. Devin Duvernay did practice and will play. He cleared concussion protocol, so he said that's already been determined. Cobb did not practice again. Watson get the hamstring injury practice today. Like you said, Watkins didn't practice and Lazard was limited today. So that's a little bit up there in news that we just got that in just now.
Yeah, so that takes us to our last and least interesting position at the defense spot.
Oh, we didn't go running back yet.
Oh yeah, that's why we're saving it for last, because it's fun, right? Because who wants to end a show on defense? Perfect. Okay, that's way better anyways. Up top, we got Jonathan Taylor as the most expensive guy, but he's not actually the highest projected one today. It is Joe Mixon facing a Jets team that just got ran all over by Nick Chubb the week before. Mixon disappointed some people. I know me personally was disappointed by Mixon's performance against Dallas, but he still had 19 carries and he had 27 the game before that. So Joe Mixon is the highest projected running back. Is this some chalk you're looking to get away from, or are you all over Mixon this week?
I think I'm going to be all over him this week. We saw what Chubb did to him last week. If he's going to continue to get that workload and all the workload, you might as well you have to go with him. You can't fade him in this spot. So I think you have to. I think Mixon's a phenomenal play, especially with the price point of $8,200. That's really, really cheap and a good price for him.
Yeah, I'm with you exactly. So our next, if that's our number one, who is the next range of guys you want to be looking at? Because we got this crew of guys: Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler. They're all in the 8Ks. Of course, we have Jonathan Taylor up top as well. Matchup against KC. He'll probably go lower owned because of all these other guys who are cheaper. But who in this other range of 8K and 9K guys are you looking to prioritize outside of Austin Eckler?
8K, 9K, the 8K, 9K wise, I'm going to have to say probably Leonard Fournette. And that's still tough because of the matchup is going to be tough for him. So I honestly don't know. I really want to like him a lot, but I have to go over it a little bit more to depth and find out if I really want to get to him. But I think it's only 7K, but I think that he could be my second favorite option. But I really do like Dalvin Cook a lot. He would be my number one. I guess if it wasn't for Joe Mixon being there in that match with the Jets. But this is just equally as good. And I think that we know they got to give Leonard Fournette the ball just because of the situation. Cook, we know he can get vultured by obviously Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen or Irv Smith. So that's the one thing. Or even Madison, who I think is another valuable option today on the slate in deep GPPs or big distant GPPs. So Cook, I think, is the way to go. But another guy that I also really do love a lot, I know he's not in that 8K range, but is David Montgomery. He's probably my favorite as far as like below 8K running back that I want to spend on this week.
Yeah, David Montgomery I think is interesting, but I'm definitely going to take Fournette over him, especially if their ownership is similar. Looking at how Green Bay's defense has been this year, Dalvin Cook in game 1, 90 yards rushing on 20 attempts. Madison, 8 attempts for 36, both of them averaging 4.5 yards a carry. And obviously that was Justin Jefferson's game where he almost had 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then in the very next week against against Chicago. David Montgomery ran all over them in not that many carries. And so did Khalil Herbert as well. So Leonard Fournette, I think, is the guy. They're probably going to be leaning on that running game. I think it's somewhat interesting to do a little mini Tampa stack in that game of Leonard Fournette and Brashad Perryman together, kind of thinking maybe he catches one or two bombs, the Tampa Bay gets the lead, and Fournette is just running the ball all over Green Bay. That's kind of the game scripts that I want to look at for that one, especially since it's in Tampa. So Fournette is probably going to be my second favorite running back, but I would agree with you. Dalvin Cook is my next favorite to pay up for, but it's just if they get down in the red zone, they're still going to look to all these receivers in Irv Smith. Maybe Madison's in there. I really, really lean heavy Joe Mixon over Dalvin Cook, and then I think I would rather pay down for that next spot at Leonard Fournette. I don't mind the David Montgomery call too, though. I'm very interested in Alvin Kamara this week, all the way down at 7K. Like Mark Ingram is still kind of beat up. He's going to get all the running back work this week. He's back. He's healthy. He's been practicing all week. They held him out of an abundance of precaution in week 2. He could have gone. So Alvin Kamara should never be 7K. It's simple as that. Alvin Kamara at no point should ever be 7K. He should be priced right alongside Joe Mixon and Dalvin Cook. So it's a price play thing for me against Carolina. I'm gonna be playing a lot of Kamara. I don't think I want to get to either of these Green Bay backs, but if I did, it would probably be Aaron Jones because I think he'll be more involved in the passing game. Miles Sanders, I think, is going to be fine. Like they're spreading the ball a bit around at running back, but like he's getting some red zone looks. He had 17 carries last game, but I think for me personally, I would rather just try and find a little bit more salary to get up to Leonard Fournette. If I'm not paying up for the 8K and 7K range, I'm going to be looking in this high 5K range. And the guys I'm interested in looking at are Dameon Pierce for Houston against Chicago. He was all the way up to 15 carries last game, but I don't think Houston's going to win. I think Chicago's going to win. It's in Chicago. And so just because of that, this isn't a guy that's gotten a lot of receptions. Burkhead's kind of the guy they go to there. So Dameon Pierce, no, I don't really think he's going to be for me because he's coming in somewhat chalky. The pivots off of him, I think I'd like to go to Michael Carter against Cincinnati. Been getting a ton of targets running back for the Jets, as well as Cam Akers against Arizona. I think if we see,
that's a hot
I think if we see somebody like Cooper Kupp not getting there, I think it could be because of Cam Akers. And, he had 15 carries last game. He started looking a little bit better. This was who everybody thought was the undisputed number 1 running back for the Rams this year. He was getting drafted in the 5th round of fantasy leagues. And because he didn't barely touch the field in game 1, where he was coming off a torn ACL the year before, everybody's just now off of him. His price has dropped. He had 15 carries last week. Cam Akers is going to be one of my favorite running backs for tournaments.
Yeah, that's a bold one. I don't mind it for sure. I like Dameon Pierce a lot. He's going to be my number 1 overall in this cheap range. I think this is the Dameon Pierce coming out party this week. I think he's going to rush over 100 yards, have a touchdown or 2 in this spot at 5,800. So I'm really going to be heavy on him today. And this is not really much lower than I'd like getting to. Everyone that I like is going to be probably about that same price point around 5.8 for Pierce or higher for anyone else. I really also do like a guy who is not going to be really targeted a lot. It's going to be CPAT. Cordell Patterson. I think he is still with those other running backs being out. He's just in a phenomenal spot to do it all for this team again. So I like him a lot. I think he's someone that's going to go well overlooked and just try to get him on the field as much as I possibly can in my life as much as I possibly can as well, too. Other than that, I don't think there's really many running backs I want to have that like a lot of exposure to. I think my running back pool is going to be very, 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 very small this week, honestly. and obviously you got Swift, who I think is fine here as well, and so is Antonio Gibson, and even Josh Jacobs. But I'm just gonna find ways to probably not get to those guys and pay up or pay down a little bit.
If I'm MMEing, I think players I would keep in the pool would be somebody like a Raheem Mostert, who got a bunch of carries last week and got the majority of the snaps for the Dolphins. And so he's somebody I think I'd include in my pool just in case I was playing a lot of lineups. But I want to touch on quick one player, Cordell Patterson. Yes, Damian Pierce is on the IR, but in game one, Tyler Algier was already not on the active roster before they knew Pierce was going to get scratched. Or sorry, because Pierce got hurt right early. I can't remember if it was a scratch before the game or at the start of the game, whenever it was. And that led to Cordell Patterson getting a ton of touches because he was the only running back on the roster. Last week, Tyler Algier got 10 carries because he dressed because they knew about Pierce's injury. So I don't think I want Cordell Patterson, but I like the other calls. Let's finish off with some defense, get out of here before we hit the 45-minute mark. Are you paying up? Are you paying down? What's your typical strategy? For me, I basically always like to complete punt at the defensive position where I can. I'm looking at the Seattle Seahawks, the Jacksonville Jaguars if we get Justin Herbert out this week. And I even think you can – I don't think it's that crazy to include the Detroit Lions and the Arizona Cardinals in your pool as well.
Wow, Detroit, that's a tough one for me, but I can see it a little bit, especially in the shootout game with turnovers happening a lot. If it does happen, especially with Kirk Cousins, who can't turn the ball over a good amount, I probably am going to be a little bit pay up a little bit more. I want to attack these teams that have good that don't have a good offensive line, or that have shown some weakness where they can get exploited. They can be exploited. Miami is a team I like to get to a little bit against Buffalo, even though Buffalo has been like the best team so far through the first two games. But I think Miami they can rush the passer a little bit and get to him. So I like them. I like Jacksonville, if especially more so if Pittman doesn't play, or even if he does play. I just think that
Jacksonville's against the Chargers.
Chargers. Sorry. Oh goodness, that was last week was Pittman. If Herbert doesn't play, then I really like Jacksonville a lot. But I still think they're playing either way. I think they're a young, good defense that's going to even be even better next year. They got a nice young line. I think that's pretty good there too. But I also do like spending up a little bit and going to a team like the Saints against Carolina. Baker Mayfield obviously can have those games where he turned the ball over, so I don't mind that as well. Other than that, I'm probably going to try to stick with just play whoever my lines could fit. Fill it out last typically and see how it works out from there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I usually get that position in last, or at least with only like a flex and a receiver position open, just so I can kind of figure out how much money I have left to spend on those guys. The reason I mention a team like the Lions is, like you mentioned, Kirk Cousins can turn the ball over. And then for Arizona, yes, I think like this is one of my favorite game stacks on the slate, if not my favorite game stack on the slate. But I also look and I see in the very first game of the season, yes, it was against the Bills, but Stafford got sacked 7 times. He threw 3 picks. In the second game, he got sacked once. He threw 2 picks. So even though they score a lot of points, they do give up some points to defenses as well. So the Jags will take priority if Herbert's out. As it stands right now, I think the Seahawks are my favorite defense in this low tier. I like getting a defense if I can in the afternoon, just because it makes me feel better about my lineups. I think the Eagles are very interesting facing their old teammate Carson Wentz. Their defense has been putting up a lot of points early in the year. We saw that against Minnesota last week. And then the Saints against Carolina, I think, are very interesting as well. But they're picking up a little bit of ownership. I think they're probably looking like they'll be the cash game defense. And so I typically like to avoid those situations. The last one I want to touch on for tournaments is the Buffalo Bills, just because people are kind of going to be scared away because Miami put up a bunch of points last week, but they can also turn the ball over, and this Bills defense can rush the passer.
And they're not even blitzing. That's crazy. That's the scary part. They're rarely blitzing, and their front line is just getting to the passer. That's scary. That's just different type of scary. So I like the Bills call a lot, especially they're going to be 1% owned.
The Bills are the one team, the one defense this week that I'm going to go out of my way to make sure I target in a lineup. Like, I want a Bills defense because I think they're the most likely to break a slate.
Oh, easy. Definitely, for sure. I agree with that 100%. The way Von Miller's just looked with this on this front is just is phenomenal. Better than the Rams.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. He's looking Von Miller with the Broncos-esque. That'll basically do it for this week's episode. You can find me on Twitter, TJ_Zwarych5, Andre at Drizzy26_DFS, or is it just straight DFS?
_DFS, you're right.
Oh, I had it right the first time. That's another edition of FanDuel Friday for football. Make sure you hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. Any final takes, Dre, before we get out of here?
No, just gonna say good luck. And there's a lot of stacks that could possibly win it. Play who you love and just make the best life you possibly can with it.
I'm with you. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next Friday. Peace.